The date is October 29th, 1618. The old palace yard at Westminster is packed with a crowd holding its breath. In the center stands a man, old and weary, but his back is straight, and his eyes are still burning with an arrogant fire. He runs his thumb along the edge of the executioner's axe and smiles, quipping, "This is a sharp medicine, but it is a physician for all diseases and miseries." This man was once the favorite of a queen, a legendary explorer who sailed into the unknown, and a poet whose words defined an age. Today, pop culture remembers a shadow of his name through a legendary anime pirate, the Dark King, Silver's Rayleigh. But the man standing on that scaffold, Sir Walter Raleigh, lived a life far more dangerous, complex, and tragic than any fiction. He wasn't just a mentor to the next generation, he was a man who chased gold until it led him to the grave. To understand the end, we must go back to the beginning, or rather, the rise. Imagine Elizabethan England. It is the late 1500s. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and the excitement of a world suddenly growing larger. Maps have blank spaces, and blank spaces mean opportunity. Into this world steps Walter Raleigh. He isn't born into massive wealth. He is a soldier, fighting in religious wars in France and Ireland, sharpening his steel and his wit. But Raleigh knows that the real battlefield isn't in the mud. It's at court. There is a famous myth you might have heard. A young, dashing Raleigh sees Queen Elizabeth I approaching a mud puddle. Without hesitation, he whips off his expensive velvet cloak and lays it over the muck, so the Queen's feet remain dry. Whether this actually happened is debated by historians, but the truth of the moment is undeniable. Raleigh knew how to play the game. He was tall, handsome, and incredibly charismatic. He became the Queen's favorite. For a time, he was untouchable. He was granted monopolies on wine and cloth, given vast estates, and knighted. He was the gold of the court, shining brighter than anyone else. But Raleigh wasn't satisfied with just looking good. He wanted the unknown. Raleigh was obsessed with the New World. While he often stayed behind at the Queen's command, she couldn't bear to risk her favorite pet. He organized and financed expeditions that would become the stuff of nightmares. He sponsored the Roanoke colony in modern-day North Carolina. It was supposed to be the foothold of an English empire, a place to challenge the dominance of Spain. Families, soldiers, and dreamers were sent across the Atlantic. But when supply ships finally returned 3 years later, the colony was gone. No bodies, no signs of battle, just the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post. It was a failure that would have ruined a lesser man. It was a financial disaster and a humanitarian mystery that endures to this day. But Raleigh, he brushed it off. He was too busy looking for something bigger. He was looking for El Dorado. However, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And Raleigh's fall was spectacular. You see, being the Queen's favorite meant you belonged to the Queen. But Raleigh fell in love with one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, Elizabeth Throckmorton. They married in secret. When the Queen found out, her jealousy was absolute. The favorite was thrown into the Tower of London. This is where the shiny veneer of the courtier cracks, and we see the hardened survivor. For 5 years, he lived in the shadow of the executioner's block, but even stone walls couldn't contain his ambition. He bought his freedom with a promise. He would find the city of gold. He would find El Dorado in the jungles of Guiana, South America, and fill the English treasury with so much wealth that his betrayal would be forgiven. Now, let's pause for a moment. Does this sound familiar? A man of immense strength and charisma? A man who sailed the most dangerous seas? A man who was close to the king, or in this case, the queen of the era, only to retire into a life of semi-obscurity and run-ins with the law. In the world of One Piece, Silver's Rayleigh is the Dark King, the first mate of the Pirate King, Gol D. Roger. The creator, Eiichiro Oda, loves history, and the connection here is more than just a name. Consider the metals. Gol D. Roger represents gold. Silver's Rayleigh represents silver. In real history, Sir Walter Raleigh was defined by his pursuit of gold, specifically the Spanish myth of El Dorado. He spent his life chasing the sun, much like the Roger pirates chased the end of the Grand Line, but the similarities go deeper. Silver's Rayleigh in the anime is introduced as an old man, coding ships, drinking, and gambling, a retired legend who knows the true history of the world but chooses not to tell it. Sir Walter Raleigh, during his long imprisonment in the Tower of London, wrote The History of the World. It was a massive literary undertaking, writing down the history of humanity while waiting to die. Both the anime character and the historical figure are scholars, swordsmen, and men who have seen the peak of the world, only to end up watching the next generation take the stage. But unlike the anime character who gets to retire in peace, history had a brutal ending waiting for Walter. King James I took the throne after Elizabeth died, and he hated Raleigh. He viewed him as a war hawk and a pirate. But Raleigh, old and desperate, convinced the king to let him go on one last voyage to Guiana. One last chance to find the gold. The king agreed, with one condition: do not attack the Spanish. The expedition was a disaster. Raleigh was sick with fever, collapsing in his cabin. His son, Wat, led a party inland and attacked a Spanish outpost. In the fighting, Raleigh's son was killed. They found no gold. They found only death. Raleigh returned to England a broken man. He had lost his son, his fortune, and he had broken the king's condition. The Spanish ambassador demanded his head, and King James was all too happy to give it to him. We returned to the scaffold in 1618. Raleigh declined a blindfold. He wanted to see the blow that would kill him. He looked at the executioner, who was hesitating, terrified to kill a living legend. Raleigh's voice rang out one last time. "What dost thou fear? Strike, man, strike!" The axe fell. Sir Walter Raleigh was a courtier, a spy, a poet, and an explorer. He was arrogant, brilliant, and deeply flawed. He didn't find El Dorado, and his colonies vanished into the mist. But his legacy didn't die. His writings inspired the English Civil War. His tobacco and potatoes changed the European economy. And centuries later, his name lives on in the ink of a manga, immortalized as the right hand of the pirate king. He was the silver that never quite became gold, but he shone just as brightly. If you enjoyed this dive into the real history behind your favorite characters, make sure to subscribe to Modern Day Hystoria. We have more forgotten chapters of history waiting to be opened. Let us know in the comments, which historical figure should we decode next? Until then, keep the past alive.